We have been talking this week about God's blessings on his people, and I personally feel like God has blessed our nation and America as we celebrate our independence today. Good morning. This is Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Thursday. We spoke earlier about how God blesses us for our obedience to him. In the beginnings of our country, people were seeking a place where they could worship God freely without any interference from the government. That is part of why we sought our independence some 248 years ago, so we could worship God in the way we believe the Bible teaches us to. Our founding fathers have been quoted down through the years for the scriptures they used in forming this new nation and the beliefs that they held as God followers. There are many inscriptions around Washington, D.C. on monuments, on buildings, declaring our faith in God as a nation. So the promise of God comes to us in Proverbs chapter 14 about how a nation should seek after the Lord. Proverbs 14:34 says, "Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people." God calls for a people, a family, or even a nation to seek after him and to walk in his ways. You know, in the Old Testament, Moses tells the heads of households in Deuteronomy 6 to teach their family that our God is one and we should love the Lord our God with all our heart, all our soul, and all our strength. If we as a people and collectively as a nation would follow God's commands for us, he would certainly bless us abundantly. Now, I personally believe he has blessed our nation for that obedience in the past 248 years. But I also believe we've failed as a country to follow God's commands in our lives. After all, we have aborted and murdered countless millions of babies in the name of choice or a woman's right. We have distorted the image that God created us in to seek to identify as something completely different. And of course, we have ignored God in our daily lives by not worshiping him, not being a part of the church, which Christ even ordained in the New Testament. I believe we, as the people of God, need to pray for our leaders. But I also believe that we need to pray for our nation of citizens to turn back to God and to follow after his ways. If it takes righteousness to exalt a nation, we need to change our lifestyles. And of course, most importantly, we need to seek the righteousness of Christ over us, since that's really the only way that we'll be acceptable before God the Father. Indeed, as the proverb states, sin is a reproach to any people. You know, we can see the horrible reports on television about families, how they're headed downward in a spiral path. We can even see whole communities who have rejected the Lord so completely that there is a kind of judgment that's falling upon them as a whole. Now, don't think we just need to whip ourselves into, or whip other people into shape to restore America. If our nation is to be exalted and blessed by a holy God, we need personal changes ourselves. Let's seek God's favor by walking in obedience to his calling, and let's seek his blessings on the United States of America.